Uh, Welcome to our annual webinar on registering for the CUSC survey. There are some new wrinkles in the registration process this year, so hopefully this will be useful to you as you prepare to go through the process to participate in our middle years students survey. So my name is Glenn Keeler. I'm the president of the CUSC board. Tyler Hall is here too. He's the past president, and he and I are going to tag team this a little bit. I'm going to do the presenting, and Tyler's going to fix my mistakes. Is the way this goes. So if you have questions as we go through these, feel free to throw them in the chat. Tyler can pick up some and draw my attention to others that it would be better for me to answer. And otherwise, we're just going to roll through the process as it exists this year. So let me get on with sharing my screen, and then we can get going with this. All right. You should be able to see that. Tyler, give me a thumbs up if that's visible. That's good. So shockingly, this is the CUSC website, which is where you go to. So that's CUSC-CCREU.ca. And it will take you to this part of the website. And when you're going to register, then you would be clicking on the Taking Part link down here. So you can scroll down if you really want and see other things, but for registration processes, Taking Part is where you want to click. On the Taking Part page, there's some words, but there's also this big red button. The big red button is where you go to actually complete the registration. There are some documents which are slowly getting on here. Sometime this afternoon, we'll have the final versions of some of these on here. But for instance, there's the price list, the survey instrument itself, our procedures manual, which is in the process. And then we have a module this year on EDI questions, and that's included there as well. So you scroll down here, you click on the red button. And here's the first difference, is this little paragraph at the top of this page. We have set it up so that you can create an account on our website. And that account allows you to save drafts of your registration form. So you could start filling in the registration form, go away, come back, log into the website again, and you would then be able to have all your answers from your previous round saved, and you can just scroll through, pick up from where you left off, and carry on to the end of it. So that is the first part. There's a link there where you can create your account if you need to do that. It's a pretty standard process. You go in, you fill in your information, email and password are important, and then you will get an email sent to whatever email address you put in there with a link in it so that you can confirm that it's your email. Do check, and some sites have found that message going into their spam folders. So if you don't see it in a few minutes in your inbox, check your spam folders, and it probably is there. You click the link in that email, and then you can click a link either in that email or the follow-up one that's sent to you that says you confirmed your email address to get into the login area. Or if you're really impatient, you can just go back to the site here and go to this page and click the login at this link. So it's like any other login that you might have used before. So I'm going to illustrate this without saving a draft, but you would just log in and use your username and password. It may encourage you to use two-factor authentication. If you have gotten into the practice of doing that, that does help secure your account just a little bit more. The other thing that's at this page is a link to that procedures manual is right at the top here. There are lots of references in the form itself to sections of the procedures manual. So it's sometimes handy to click that, have that open in, it's a PDF, so it'll be however you've got set up for PDF viewing. And that will help you as you wander your way through the form here. And then there's the form itself. And we've got our little many pages links here that show you where you are in the process. And we start with who you are and what department you work for, what institution you're with. So I'm going to cleverly use words like test for this stuff so that it doesn't take very long to fill in. And some of these are formatted, so you do have to follow the correct format. It'll tell you if you get it wrong. It'll tell you if you omit something. The red stars are required things as usual. So it's pretty straightforward for filling this in. So you start with who you are as an institution. Then we move on to contacts. And so the primary contact name in this case, hey, my fingers are not typing the right way, is going to be me. Email addresses need to be real for this. You can't just fill in any old thing. So I'm going to use a real email address that happens to be my office email address. You don't have to fill in a secondary contact name. The primary contact name should be the person who's really doing the work on the CUSC survey. So whoever is going to be sending in the sample file, who's going to set up the email messages that you want PRA to send out, inviting students to participate in the survey, and who would be handling if you have additional survey questions or if there are questions about the survey that come in. The primary contact is the person you want doing all of that. But it is useful sometimes to have a secondary contact that also assists with this. So if the primary person's not available, the secondary person can take care of it. I'm actually going to leave that blank so I don't have to make up another email address. There is a third contact here that we're asking for, and this is required. It's a financial contact. So this is whoever we need to interact with about invoicing and payment questions. Sometimes this is inside an institutional research department, but most often this will be somebody in your financial services that will actually be taking care of the payment process. And I'll just fill in the email address and do that again, because that's how we confirm, at least at this point, that you have gotten it right. And then a phone number is also useful in extreme circumstances. So that's the contact page. It's whoever's going to be doing that, and I suspect people in this meeting are likely to be the primary contacts. A secondary contact, if you have one in the office, that's useful, and then that financial contact. Moving, oh, see, I did something wrong. It is very fussy about those email addresses matching. I put a capital S on one, and that's not good enough. So even capitalization counts in that testing. So then you get to the first question that's about some of the options that you might be having. So there are two ways of going through this form. One is to just say, we want to preserve our CUSC membership for the year, and that would be the bottom button here. And then you're kind of skipping past almost all the rest of the form, because that's all you're doing is your membership. The top one is what most of you will want, and that is participation in the 2023 survey of middle year students. That's what you want to be doing for the most part. So that's the one I'm going to select now. Then, once you're in to this part, there are two ways of participating in the survey. You can participate as a non-member. If for some reason your institution doesn't qualify for membership, you can participate as a non-member. But if you are a provincially recognized degree granting institution, we do encourage you to participate as a member. Members get a ton of benefits that non-members do not. Members get the national data set where you get the responses from every student in the country who responds to the survey, which lets you set all sorts of baselines and comparisons. It's very useful. You also have access to certain reports and being able to add some things to your participation in the survey itself. So I do encourage you to do that. this is one of the little pieces we've added this year. Is it's going to track as you make different choices what that is. So non-members, it's a $250 charge. For members, it's a $500 charge. So watch for these estimated total boxes as you go through the survey. That may help you make some of the choices that you want to in participating. Moving right along, what's the total population of students who meet the definition of the standard sample? That's where you want this procedures manual, because that's where the definition of that sample is. And it gives you the section of the procedures manual, usually underneath the input box. So that's it. This year, it's middle year students. I am at a relatively small institution. So I'm gonna put in a whole 250 as my guess. The next box is where you say, is this an actual head count? Or is this an estimate? For many of us, this will be an estimate because we may or may not have the ability to count those students at this point in time. I'm going to pretend it's an actual estimate. This really just tells us how provisional that answer is. Now, it's not required that you send the survey to all of those students. In small institutions, it's very common to just say, where I'm going to put in all 250 students here that I'm going to send that to. But if you are at a large institution where you're numbering in the thousands, it is possible for you to choose a sample of the qualifying student population. Normally, 1,000 is the standard sample size, and for institutions where the population is less than 1,000, we do recommend that you do the census. But even at having said all of that, it's not necessary that you use a sample. If you're at a larger institution and you want to send the survey to every one of the qualifying students, please be our guest. Go right ahead. The next part is about a special sample, or whether you'll be surveying a special sample. And these are students who may not be included in that standard sample, where you want to force their inclusion because you are studying something particular about your institution. If you choose yes, then the little box here that shows up says how many students are going to be in that special sample. So I'm going to say yes here and pretend that we have 15 students that we want to force into that sample. So we may be wanting to include some students who aren't technically in the middle years, but transferred in and so are unlikely to actually complete this year. So we may want to see what those transfer students look like. That's what the special sample is about, is allowing you to force in that particular sample. Now, this is another new thing. We helpfully add those two numbers together for you. So now that you see your total number is 265, so that is when you start saying, well, what am I going to choose? So far, just participating is $500, and then you choose whichever category into which your combined samples add up to. Now, in this case, it's small, but it adds the 3,100 to the 500, and you get your total so far. Again, there are procedures manual references in here about those different numbers. So you can look at those. And I'm going to particularly say, if you're more than 15,000 students, you should contact us to get a specific cost estimate for that, because we've defined costs all the way up to 15,000 students. But after that, there needs to be some recalculation. Then we start to get into your various options for your survey package. So the first is, what language would you like to have your data and reports be in? And you can choose English and French. The survey itself is completely bilingual, but the results are stated in the language that you select here. A little bit later on, we're going to see that you can order results in the other language, whichever one you didn't select. In this case, you can order reports in that. If you're in a bilingual operating environment, that may be helpful to you to have the reports, at least some of them, be in both languages. So here, you're making your initial choice. You will be adding to that a little bit later on. Then when would you like to be invoiced for the items that you order? Because of differing fiscal years between institutions, so you may have a preference about being invoiced before the 31st of March or after the 31st of March or on a specific day. In my case, I want before the 31st of March. If it was other, you'd be entering a date yourself. So it's up to you to choose that. The third box is often one that is left blank, but we at King's and at most institutions are using institutional email addresses to send out the invitations to students. And those are being generated by PRA on your behalf. There may be special instructions that you need to give to PRA to stop those messages from being trapped by your spam filters, your institutional spam filters. So you should get instructions from your IT department on how to avoid that, if at all possible. Just this week, my IT department turned our spam filtering up to 11. So lots of things have been landing in spam that have been totally normal communications up to this point. So it is helpful if you can avoid that for your students by putting in some directions for PRA to follow here. Survey dates. The surveys can start on the 9th of January, 2023, and they can start on any date after that up to the 26th of March of 2023. So you're going to pick a date, and if you click in that field, it is a calendar. So I'm going to be very ambitious and say the 23rd of January. And then your survey needs to end by the 9th of April. So I actually want mine to end a little bit earlier than that. I'm going to choose the 20th of March. We also don't want to be sending out reminder emails and other things to students during whatever you call your spring break, if it's reading week or spring break, or release week is my favorite because that sounds a little penal. But we want you to put in the dates of that particular week so that we're not on top of the students being away, sending them more emails that they won't read when they get back. So this is the dates that you fill in. Now, incentives, we have reorganized somewhat. You get to answer the question, are you going to be using incentives or not? From our research, incentives are a good idea. They are one of the key things you can do to increase your response rates for this survey. So we would encourage you to use incentives, but you may say no. So if you say no, all your options disappear on this page. So if you're not using incentives, please do select no, and then we can move on from this page. The normal number of incentive draws is 2. So if you're using incentives, you get 2 incentive draws built in. But some people want more incentives than that. So you can choose, I put it all the way up to 8. If you're using more than 8, wow, you're a generous place to have that number of draws, because each draw can be more than one student. Each draw can be as many students as you like. So this isn't the number of prizes, it's the number of times you want names selected for your incentive prizes. 2 is usually enough for most people, but some people do have a weekly prize or something, so they want more than that. Then this year, this is another new question. How would you like the respondents to be chosen? And the default, what we've been doing in previous years, is PRA just does a random draw from people who've responded and sends those names to you. The other option is to have PRA send the whole list of people who have responded to you, and then you do your own random draw from that list. Those are quite different actions, so it's helpful for us to know which of those you would like. Then we need to know the dates on which you want to make those draws. And so I'm going to pick some dates in here. Let's see, February 1, that sounds like a good date. And I want 2 of them over here. So to add another date, you click the plus sign here, and then I get another date box. And then we will go and we'll probably pick sometime in March. And there's my 2 dates. And you would just keep adding dates until you get to the number that you've specified over in this box here. Okay, so we pulled all the incentive stuff into a single part of the form. So hopefully that helps you sort of process your way through those options. But didn't like this date. This happens from time to time. I do not know why, where it will think you mean 2028. I never mean 2028. That's just way too far in the future. Then we get optional additions to this. So there are reminder emails. So you get 2 reminder emails as part of the standard survey package, but you can purchase additional reminders. And it could be 1, it could be 2. Each of those is $150 per reminder. This is really a function of how long you run your survey for. If you're running it for a longer number of weeks, you may need the additional reminders, especially at the end, to bring that back up to the top of the inbox for your students. If you run it as a relatively short survey, then having more than 2 may be too crowded. You're just emailing them every day. So this is your choice, but you can order up to 2 additional reminder emails. You can also add questions to the survey for your institution only. Now, a little bit later on, we'll look at collaboration groups. That's the next question. As far as I know, there aren't any this year, but these would be questions just for your institution, even if you were in a collaboration group. Most places don't add questions, but if you are going to add questions, you would answer yes. And then new this year, you get to say, maybe we'll add questions. Let's just pretend we're adding questions. Then you say, how many questions are you planning to add? Because the cost is per question. So you can add up to 20. And one of the real tricks here is that if sometimes we create questions that are really multiple questions, where we're asking about something and something else, and it looks like one question to us, but it's actually multiple questions. So what we'd like you to do is estimate the number of questions, but then send them to admin@CUSC-CCREU.ca. That is Linda Cupp's email address, and she will get the process going for our internal committee to look at those questions, and they will actually advise you on if the questions fit, how many questions it really turns into at the end. We're also looking to not duplicate questions that already exist in the survey. All of those things are reviewed by that committee, and we would like it to be 4 weeks prior to the starting date. This is the starting date I specified above. So 4 weeks prior to that, we need to have those questions to give PRA enough time to program those in for your particular version of this survey. There's a total down here, and if you start adding questions, you can see that it adds numbers. So I don't want that. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna say no. I don't want any additional questions. This is the collaboration group. As far as I'm aware, there are none this year, but if there were, you would answer yes, and then you would tell us what group you're in. If you are thinking of creating one, it's a little late now, but if you'd done previous work, you could choose other, and then we'd have to get a hold of you to figure out what other group you're actually going to collaborate with. The options continue, and this is where we start to see the impact of language choices. Relatively new. You can, if you're a member, you can start creating comparison reports. Now, they come to you in 2 versions. It's in Excel and in Word. So most of us are not ordering these, but some people would be ordering them. And in this case, it's in one language. And it's the language you chose for reports and data that will determine which of these is chosen. If you want them in both languages, then you would choose the third option here, where it's comparison reports in English and French. So you have kind of two choices. Am I getting these comparison reports, and do I want them in only the language that I selected or in both languages? Institutional data tables with tests of significance. This is only the second year that this has been an offering in the reports that you can order. So no is your first choice, and like the previous question, you can order these in whichever language you are receiving the rest of your reports in, English or French, or in both languages, in English and French, in that third option. These show you the data tables, but they also include calculations of significance that you can then go through and determine if you're seeing significant differences in the results from your comparators. Executive report, similarly, you can choose to have one prepared or not. If you have one prepared, you can have it in the language you've chosen for all your reports, or in both English and French in that third option. You can also choose to have open-ended questions categorized for you. So this is a tricky one because if you choose that, it is 65 cents for each respondent's completed open-ended question. So you don't know how much this one is going to cost until you've run the survey and you know how many respondents you have who have completed the open-ended questions. So this one is indicating that you would like that, but we usually actually end up billing separately for that because it comes after the survey has been concluded. And so it's not till May or June that we actually know the number to bill you. All the reports that you order come through a secure FTP site. Some people like paper and want to receive bound copies. There will be one or more or two or more choices here about which ones you can have printed based on what you've chosen above. So I'll just illustrate. If I choose to have let's try comparison reports. If I choose to have a comparison report, the comparison report is added to the list here. If I choose no comparison report, then it disappears. So you just check. If you want to have printed copies of these reports, you would check off the box here. Each of those is $50, and that covers the production of it and getting it to you. Learning management systems. Some of you may be doing this where you, through a student portal or maybe through Moodle or Desire to Learn or whatever the learning management system you're using is, you insert links that the student can see as an individual so that it's another way of inviting them to participate in the survey. And the data file you need to be able to do that can be selected here. It costs an extra $100 to do that. We found it to be a reasonably effective means of having students participate in the survey because it puts it in their face in another location. Quick facts, this is where, because I said I was ordering things in English, I get this series of options to order some of the standard things in French. So the institution compared to national results in French, I can add $150 there to do that. I can also do that with our CUSC group comparisons as opposed to the national comparisons. And I can order those. This gives me two copies, the English copy and the same in French. So you can choose to add those as well. Similarly, the institution long report if you ordered things in English, you can also receive your long report in French by selecting it here. Then there are two items at the bottom here. The first is the experiment. So every year we do an experiment with the structure or conduct of the survey. This past year, we were providing more prefer not to respond options and seeing what that did to survey responses. This year, we're again testing the hypothesis that shortening the survey improves completion rates. You could choose to opt out of this. I'm going to explain in a second how we're going about doing this, but it may be that you think this would be detrimental to your getting your data, and so you can choose to opt out. If you opt in, then 10% of the sample that you supply would be included in this experiment. So those students would receive one of two different short versions of the survey. And it's like creating two pathways through the survey. So the impact on your data that's coming back should be at most that you would see 5% of that sample where they would be, it would look like they had skipped some questions in the total long survey. And the hypothesis is that by doing that, by shortening it by a certain number of questions, that we'll see improved completion rates to the end, which benefits you. So it's not actually a net loss of 5% if the hypothesis is true. It'll be something less than that. So 10% of your sample would participate, half that 10% would go into one short version, half would go into a different short version, and we would compare that against the 90% who got the regular long version, and then we will see if the hypothesis stands. As a little preview, maybe it won't. We'll see. So that's one, and we do encourage people to participate in the experiment. It is helpful for refining the survey over time. The second part is every year we have a survey module. This year it's equity, diversity, inclusivity, and accessibility kinds of questions. And these are questions that are about gender identification, sexual orientation, and acceptance in a few aspects of campus life. This is obviously a fairly hot topic. It's one that takes some care in constructing the questions, and we've tried to do so by consulting. The beauty of CUSC is the member institutions often have experts on their campus that we can consult with to help us construct these things. So that's what we've done in building this module. And so you can choose to participate in the survey module. It may be that you don't want to, as an institution, participate in this module. Perhaps you're doing similar surveys of your own at the same time. So it is possible to opt out. There's no cost to this to you. This is simply something you can choose to include in the survey or exclude. There is a little link under here where you can see the questions that are being asked in this module. So as part of your decision making, you can review the actual questions as you go through here. Whew, didn't feel like it was that long, but there's 12 pages worth. You are welcome to put in any additional comments you have about your registration in this comment box. We also need to note that we will be adding GST to all of this. We're required to, GST or HST, depending on where you are. There is a note about withdrawal. So you can register for the survey and then something happens that you no longer are able to participate as an institution. If you withdraw within 2 weeks of your scheduled start date, so that's the date on which that first invitation would be sent out, you will not be charged a survey participation fee. You will be charged a cancellation fee if you give us less than 2 weeks notice. And that usually covers the costs because PRA has already done the programming of the survey and getting the emails queued up. So we've already expended some funds. So that part, the survey participation, is refundable if for some reason you were not able to complete having the survey happen at your institution. The membership fee is not refundable and not transferable. So that part is still charged when you, even if you can't participate in the survey. Then we get to the last page, and the last page is just review. You can go through here and check all of the information that you have filled into this survey the whole way through. Each section, it's basically each page is reflected in this long summary here. And so this last one is for that comment at the end. So you are encouraged to go through to make sure that you've got everything right. You can use the edit buttons to jump back and deal with that section and update it. If you miss something, or maybe you misspelled a boss's name in secondary contact, you want to fix that. So all of that is stuff that you will want to review. And once you are done, then down here is the submit button. And you would hit that, and magically you've submitted your registration. What happens at this point is you, if assuming you are the primary contact, you are emailed a copy of your registration data. And your financial contact is also emailed to say that you have registered for this. So your financial contact should know that at some point an invoice will be coming. And then we also encourage institutions to sign up for using EFT for payments instead of shipping checks around the country. That's certainly the most convenient. So we provide them all the documentation that's necessary to sign up on our side or to use their own forms. All the information is there so that they can handle that at that point. Phew. So there's the marathon of going through. I know it's a lot of information we ask from you, but it is a fairly complicated survey. So that's why the registration looks like that. So Tyler, how are we doing on questions from chat?
Good. I think we've mostly been answering them. Excuse me for a second. So just one question remaining here. Is the cancellation fee a standard price or dependent on what was requested during registration?
Yeah, it's, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because this doesn't happen very often. So each time that there's a cancellation, it feels new. But I believe it's the participation fee, that first number at the very beginning of the survey. So the $500 for members or $250 for non-members. Most of the rest of the fees are related to receiving reports and services that if you give us, if on short notice you're canceling, then those won't happen either. So we won't be making those expenditures. So we don't prepare a report, even if you ordered it and then canceled your participation. Wow, there's a lot of questions. All right. Anything further? Any other questions that people might have? Just going to wait for a moment for questions to percolate to the surface.
I think there's one coming. Oh, just to clarify, the billing can be requested before or after March 31st.
Right. That seems to be a typical dividing line in fiscal years. So you can specify before or after March 31st. And there is always the other option where you can put in a different date. Maybe it's April 15th for you. That is the right date. But yeah, you can put in before or after March 31st.
And what's the latest date that we can request the billing deadline?
Well, we won't release your reports to you until we've received payment. I hate to put an outside date on that, but the reports are generally ready and mostly ready for distribution by the end of June, beginning of July. So certainly you'd want to have that resolved probably by June. Perfect. I love it when somebody says my response is perfect. All right. Other questions from anybody else? All right. A couple of notes on timing. We are just at the end of finalizing. There is a question about who you follow up with for questions. You can send your questions to admin@CUSC-CCREU.ca. That's Linda's email address, and Linda will certainly forward anything to others if she doesn't have the answer. So that's the one. Tyler, if you could type that into the chat, that would be great. Oh, there we go. Almost right. There's an E missing from part of that. So that's who you email. We hopefully this afternoon we'll be finishing up our final versions of the procedures manuals. So registration for CUSC will officially open on Monday. And at that point, you can all race in there and then call all your friends and say, have you registered for CUSC yet? And they can do it too. That would be great. The middle year survey has the phenomenon of being slightly lower participation than other versions of our survey. So we would like to encourage people to join us and learn about those sometimes neglected middle children and in families and middle year students in institutions. All right. I'm not seeing any other questions. Anything that I missed, Tyler, that you think we should cover?
I don't think so. I think you covered it all well, Glenn.
All right.
And the procedures manual is there, so that document as well should answer any questions you have as a first place to go to. If you can't quite remember something and you know that Glenn talked about it, all of this is detailed in the procedures manual. So if you take a look there, and again, if anything is unclear or you need more information than what has been provided, do get in touch with us.
Yeah. Another note is that we are recording this, and so this part of the page on taking part will be replaced as soon as the recording's available with a link to that recording. So you'll be able to play it here if you're more a video person than a text person. You'll be able to review that all there. And if you're one of those that's creating an account to log into the site with, I've stuck a login form at the bottom of that taking part page so that it's fairly easy to find as you go into start from the draft that you started creating. All right, well, I think we're about to give people 15 minutes of their day back. So unless there are further questions, then I appreciate very much all of you joining us for this, and we look forward to having you in the group that does participate in the survey. And we'll meet again because I will invite all of you to join us for the results webinar that will happen probably in August next year after all of the results have been collected, and PRA will lead us through what they would like to highlight for us out of those results. So thanks everybody, and we'll talk to you in the future.